Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into the topic of automakers price gouging their customers, because it seems like as time goes on, automakers find more and more ways to just squeeze the maximum amount of money out of their customers. But before we get into this video, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So the first price gouging item we're going to be talking about is the destination charge. This is the charge that automakers pass on to the customers to pay for transporting a brand new vehicle from the factory to the dealership that the customer is going to be taking delivery of the vehicle from. And with most manufacturers, they'll just set the destination charge at the same rate no matter where the vehicle is going. So if you're picking up a vehicle in California, New York, Michigan, wherever it may be, the destination charge is always going to be the same, which is kind of funny because that means that sometimes automakers lose money on the destination charge, and sometimes they technically make money, because if you have a vehicle that is built at a factory and then shipped to a dealership that's right next to the factory, well, it probably doesn't cost $1,500 to ship it, right? But regardless, automakers have inflated this destination charge by a massive amount. Prior to the pandemic, it was pretty normal to see a destination charge of under $1,000, whereas now it looks like $2,000 is the norm. And yes, shipping costs have increased, but they haven't increased by that much. And I quickly want to go over the way that automakers ship and talk about the cost to really kind of put this into perspective. So what most automakers will do is they will put their vehicles on a train car and they'll ship it to a hub, and then they'll have the car taken out of that hub, put on a transport truck, and then taken to a dealership. And so this is actually a very cost-effective way to ship a brand new vehicle. So just to give you the actual cost numbers. To ship a vehicle via rail and then put it on a transport truck and take it to a dealership, on average, that's going to cost about $95 per net ton. And these numbers come from RSI Logistics, if you guys are wondering. Now, if you ship via just rail, which typically doesn't happen in the automotive industry because there's almost always a transport truck involved, but let's say you do, you're $70 per net ton. Let's say that you just use transport truck. Then on average, you're $214 per net ton. Now, I have quite a bit of familiarity with shipping via just truck because I've done it a few times when I worked at the dealership and then also personally. And I can tell you that you can ship a car via transport truck to most places here in the US for $2,000 or less. And that is the least cost-effective way to ship a vehicle, and that's not the way that most manufacturers use. And so what this means is that when manufacturers are charging, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 plus dollars for the destination charge, they're doing that by just marking up the charge. And so I don't it's like they're trying to nickel and dime us on every single avenue. And so I think that automakers need to kind of pull back on this crazy destination charge thing. And it's like, if you want to charge more for your vehicle, just charge more for it. Don't pretend that it costs more to ship when in reality it doesn't. The next item is going to be paint colors on cars, and then just options that are put on cars in general. So it's pretty safe to assume that if an automaker is going to sell a brand new car, then it has to be painted in some color. And well, most automakers typically will have a base set of colors that they sell a car with, where you don't really have to pay any extra money for those colors because there's nothing too special. Usually like white and black, for example, are going to be base colors. But another trend that is kind of worrying is that automakers have consistently been increasing the price on these quote-unquote base colors and then on more specialty colors. Now, I completely understand if an automaker wants to charge more money for a specialty color because, that typically is going to be something that's harder to integrate into an assembly line. But with base colors, that's a different story. And so what I'm actually seeing is, instead of having, a no-cost option with the base color, now it's, maybe $100, $200. I've even seen $500, $1,000 for the base colors for certain cars, or what you would consider a base color. And so I think that, again, that's another thing where it's like automakers are just trying to pad the amount of profit in every single item, and items that generally were, considered just part of a car, I guess, are no longer part of a car. And then the next thing is just general options on cars. I've noticed a pretty consistent trend to where automakers are pulling back on options. So a really good example to explain what I'm talking about is with middle-of-the-line packages on pickup trucks, because I feel like this is where there's been so much price gouging. So just a few years ago, if you were to buy a middle line pickup truck, so think Ford XLT, Ram Bighorn, for example, then it was pretty safe to assume that you'd get something like, a power adjustable driver's seat, you'd have a power sliding rear window, and you'd probably also have like dual zone climate, and you'd even have like heated seats and heated steering wheel. Whereas now these middle of the line packaged pickup trucks will come standard with like basically nothing. Like they might upgrade the gauge clusters, what I'll see with a lot of these packages, and they might give you, they won't even give you like an upgraded infotainment system. They'll just give you maybe a few extra services with the infotainment system, and it's like, oh, you want what the Bighorn package or the XLT package used to be? Well, that's this extra package that's another $4,000 that you got to pay on top of this. And it's just, again, it's crazy how much automakers are like nickel and diming people with all of these different options. And this is why the average brand new vehicle is almost $50,000 in today's market. And this is why, with Ford, for example, people are on average paying like $60,000 for a brand new Ford. And it's not because people are trying to like buy like bougie luxury cars. It's like $60,000 with Ford, for example, with a Ford pickup truck. That basically buys you like a middle of the line F-150 that doesn't even have a ton of luxury features added to it. If you want like an F-150 XLT with a solid powertrain, like 3.5 EcoBoost or the Power Boost or the 5.0 V8, for example, and you want to have heated seats, heated steering wheel, power sliding window, all that kind of stuff, then expect to pay like mid $60,000 range for that pickup truck in today's market. And so, again, this is just, it's pushing the average price of cars up by a massive amount, and it's just automakers doing, well, I should say it's what every single automaker is doing, is what German automakers have been doing for decades, and that is just nickel and diming for every possible thing on a vehicle. They're like, if it's on a vehicle, we can charge a price premium for it. That's kind of the mentality. Now, the next item that I feel like is especially disturbing for me is going to be quote unquote dealer installed options. So a lot of vehicles have certain options on them that are best to be installed at a dealership rather than on the assembly line at a factory, because it'll make the vehicle easier to be shipped. And frankly, with how that factory is producing cars, the options on it would hold up production quite a bit. A great example is with my brand new Land Rover Defender. I have a package on it called the Explorer Pack, which adds these big chunky fender flares. It adds a snorkel and a roof rack as part of that package. And so you can imagine, trying to throw on all those options in an assembly line that's just trying to pump out cars as fast as they can, that's probably not going to be the best thing. If you guys want a more domestic example, with the new C8 Corvette, there are a lot of wheel options that are going to be dealer installed rather than manufacturer installed. Now, in the past, what would happen with options like this is that the manufacturer would actually cover the installation costs. They'd be like, hey, sorry that we can't install this at our factory because of how our assembly line works, but we'll make sure to cover the cost on this at the dealership so that you're still getting the option you want and you're not having to pay extra to basically get that option installed. And that's pretty much going away. What I'm starting to see more and more is that manufacturers are saying, oh yeah, this is a package that we're going to advertise as a factory package on the car, but it's a dealer installed option, and you're also going to have to pay the dealer if you want to have that option installed. And so it's like, again, they're trying to get away from paying for things that they used to pay for. And then the other thing that actually happens on the dealership side of things is some dealers will do what's called double dipping, basically, where a factory installed or a dealer installed option will be covered by the factory, but the dealership will tell the customer that it's not actually covered by the factory. And so then the dealership will get paid out by the factory to install that option, and then they'll also get paid out by the customer as well. So do your research and make sure that that dealer installed option is actually, if it is covered by the factory or if it's not covered by the factory. Now, the last price gouging thing that I've been seeing happening over the course of the last year is manufacturers getting rid of base model cars. This is something that is actually kind of frustrating for my main channel videos, because base model cars sometimes are the best performing videos that I have. A really good example is with the Chevy Silverado Custom. I have a couple of videos on that particular truck that have hundreds of thousands of views because, well, people like watching reviews on more affordable vehicles. And well, I haven't been able to get access to these more affordable vehicles because automakers just simply aren't building them. Another example is with the Honda Civic. I've been wanting to review a base model Honda Civic LX for a long time, and it's like it doesn't exist anymore. Or like a base model Toyota Corolla. That's another good example. It doesn't really exist. And so this is just another way for automakers to squeeze more money out of their customers. Is they're like, yes, we do have a base model car that we build, but we're not actually going to build that. Instead, we're just going to build the more loaded up version of that car that you have to pay more for, which is ultimately going to lead to us making more profit. Now, I could go on and on with this video talking about all the other ways that automakers are, quote unquote, price gouging their customers, like all of these subscriptions that they are releasing, for example, like heated seats and remote start and all that kind of stuff, but you guys get the point. And so I want to cap things off by saying that I think that automakers need to pull back. I understand that production has been extremely difficult over the last few years and that we are going into a market where demand for new cars is going to continue to decrease because of what the economy is like and frankly because of how much new cars cost. But I don't think that price gouging the current customer base is the right idea. I think that that's going to frankly just push more and more people out of the market, which is in effect going to create a positive feedback loop, which will ultimately hurt automakers in the long run. And so I think that more automakers should follow suit with Toyota to an extent. Now, Toyota is obviously not a perfect player because, well, they have their stupid remote start app thing, but they have several vehicles where they've been pretty reasonable with their price increases. A good example is the Toyota 4Runner. Yes, it has increased in price over the course of the pandemic, but by a pretty marginal amount that I think doesn't even like keep pace with inflation. And so I think that that is the route to go, to where you're going to, still be able to increase prices to make sure you can maintain some level of profitability on the vehicles, but also, keep your customers happy so they keep coming back to you. And I think that that's going to be very important in the coming years because there's going to be a lot of customers switching brands because of what those brands have done. Again, like if you go in and the brand that you normally buy from is like, okay, well, here's the deal. You now have a $2,500 destination charge, and if you want a regular paint color, you're gonna have to pay $1,000 for it. And oh, if you want to get the exact same vehicle you bought from us last time, you're gonna have to pay $5,000 for this package. And on top of that, the vehicle costs $15,000 more. It's like, are you really gonna buy another car from that manufacturer? It's like, you're probably gonna be like, yeah, so about that. Gotta go walk my goldfish. I'll see ya.